Hi students, I wanted to go over the study guide for everyday use. I'm not going to do a bio on the author with this one because if you watch the video interview with Alice Walker, you got a lot of that there. But that video is the best video I've found that kind of connected her background the um, with the story of that, her rural upbringing, as well as that of the characters. But it's not the newest video interview with her. That was taken in the late 80s. I think it was 1989. So she's a little older now, but still writing. She's a very prolific writer. She's written just tons of books, and she writes fiction, nonfiction, poetry. She's just really one of America's most treasured living writers, I would say. So from the video that she came from very humble beginnings and has been able to be very successful as a writer. And so she also happens to be one of my favorite writers. She also, this is, she is currently writing. So this is an author that we have that is a really nice one to end the semester with. That is, still writing today, and there's lots of her writings that you can, pick up, which is cool. Her most famous work, as I believe it mentioned, yes, it did mention in the video, was The Color Purple. It was made into a movie as well. That's probably the one she's the most well known for, but she's written a great deal in addition to that. My first introduction to Alice Walker was when I read The Color Purple at Solano College when I was a student. It had just come out at the time. So to put that time period in perspective, right? All right, so just to go over the questions, discuss the mother in the story. What kind of person is she? How does she seem to feel about Dee? How does she seem to feel about Maggie? All right, so that's pretty straightforward, I think. Number two, how do you feel about Dee? Do you sympathize with her desire to improve herself and her family? If not, where do you think she might have gone wrong? If you do sympathize with her, what has she done well? So this is more complex than it would seem. I think sometimes people have like a strong reaction to Dee, but know that she was trying to improve herself, and I think sometimes when when folks are really trying initially to go into a new chapter of their life, they embrace it wholeheartedly, and sometimes they're not able to have a lot of sympathy for the folks that are still in the previous chapter. And I think this is the case with Dee. Like, she's really um, excited about her education, about connecting with her cultural heritage. It's just that her mother and sister are still in the rural area that she grew up in. They haven't had the benefit of the education that she's been able to have, sacrificed from that, but from their efforts as well. Um, and so she's just embracing it, I think, so much that she's a little intense as far as perhaps not accepting who they are and where they're at. But on the other hand, she is trying to move forward with her life in the way that she feels called to do. So, and then of course the flip side is, yes, she can be a little harsh with her family, right? And seems to be really not connecting with them and in the ways that she could, a little impatient and all of that. So, but I just wanted to give you that kind of other perspective, because I think sometimes, again, it's easy to have kind of a strong reaction to Dee. All right, so three, discuss the relationship between Maggie and Dee. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Just, look at the relationship between Maggie and Dee. And again, on any question, as with all quizzes, you do want to have evidence from the text about whatever your idea is about the relationship between Maggie and Dee. Number four, why has Dee assumed African dress, hairstyle, and name? So how would you characterize the attitudes of her and of her new partner toward their heritage? All right, so this was this was written, this was supposed to take place in the early 70s, and this was a very big focus at that time. Not that it's not today. We all want to connect with our heritage and learn more, about that. But this was kind of a time that people were really excited about embracing their heritage. And so, just kind of like she's really connecting with her ancestors in appreciating her heritage, which really um, give with the history of slavery had not been encouraged for folks that had been descendants of slaves before that. So this was, and then of course there was slavery. Even after slavery was over in 1865, there was segregation in the South. And this does take place in the South. So this is, of course, after segregation had ended, but this was a very exciting time from Dee's perspective to embrace one's heritage and take pride in one's heritage. So just know that's the time period, and that that um, she embraces it intensely, and that's sometimes, again, we can have a reaction to that because of the way that comes across to her mother, particularly um, with the name when she's trying to, Wangaroo, like that when she's trying to, kind of reject her birth name of Dee. And she's saying, no, this is my heritage. But her mother was saying, this is your heritage. This was you were named for like your grandmother. And going on about that. So they're both right, but they're looking at it in different perspectives, as people do. So how would you personally characterize the attitudes of Dee and of her partner about their heritage, right? So you're going to give your ideas about that and, of course, evidence. 5. What does Dee say or do that reflects a growing interest in preserving her heritage? How is the butter churn used to contrast Dee's relationship with her heritage with Maggie? Is there anything ironic about Dee's connection to her heritage? So I think even in the title, that speaks to that everyday use, right? That when she says about the quilt, that Maggie would likely use the quilt for everyday use, right? That she would use it as a quilt, right? And that she would want to preserve that heritage, hang it on the wall, and recognize, the beauty of the art, right? But that Maggie gets that what a quilt is for is to warm us, right? To put it on a bed, and to that was the original intention. So again, it's not that either one is right or wrong, but it's complex, right? So look at that. But that just kind of gives you a little, I think, perspective or background on that, perhaps. 6. Think about the most important object in the story, which is a nice segue, right? The quilts. Think about the history of quilts and discuss how the quilts may be symbols of something deeper, right? So we have the quilts. So I think that's pretty straightforward, right? And I just gave you a little bit on that. But again, quilts have traditionally been both useful, everyday use, right? And they've also been an art form, both, right? So there are both perspectives on that. There's a long history of American quilting through, for hundreds of years now, and in various areas of the country and different patterns, and there's also sort of a history of women getting together and sharing stories and quilting, and families and communities and things like that. So there's a lot about the quilts, right? So the history of quilts, you do want to connect this to the story. So you wouldn't want to just answer this randomly, thoughts about quilts, and you do want to get specific and have some evidence from the story, again, to connect with your idea. Number 7. Why does Mrs. Johnson decide to stand up to Dee at the end of the story and not allow her to take the quilts? Does she appear to have an epiphany? Explain. I think that's pretty straightforward. Why do you think she does this, right? And then you want to explain your idea clearly and have evidence from the text as well. 8. At the end of the story, Dee tells Maggie, I'm sorry there's an E missing there, it's really a new day for us, but from the way you and Mama live, you'd never know it. What does Dee mean? Is it a new day for Maggie and Mama? Do they want it to be? Explain. So again, this is referring specifically to the times, right? To the early 70s and the equality that is available, the opportunities that are available that Dee/Wangaroo is seeking and embracing, but she feels that her mother and sister are rather stuck in the past. But by the same token, her mother and sister are doing what they do, right? This is their life. They get to choose the way, they are, very capable and very content with their life as it is, and the sacrifices they have made have allowed Dee to have these opportunities, right? So, but is it a new day for them? And how is it? How is it not? It's complex, right? And do they want it to be? What do you think? What are their desires, right? So you want to answer that question and give evidence from the text. Number 9, how is this story representative of family dynamics? Give an example from your experience or observations and connect it to a specific example from the story. Okay, so this is, I want to make sure you get all the parts. You want to explain how the story is representative of family dynamics. You want to give your own experience or observation. So if you experience something that connects with the family dynamics in this story, then you can give that. If you haven't personally, but you observed, a friend or someone that within their family that you made an observation about that and that connects, then give that specific example. And then connect it to a very specific example from the story. So, for example, I'll give you something that I connected with this story. So, the idea of whether the quilts are for everyday use, to be on the bed, used, warming the family, or whether that should be, that they should be hung on the wall to appreciate the art, right? So, there's 2 different perspectives on this. So, in my own family, let's see, so my great aunt, so my father's aunt was baptized as a baby in this little christening gown, right? And that was passed on, and then my father was baptized in the same christening gown, right? That was passed on to me. I was baptized as a baby in the little christening gown, right? And then so my parents had it, and they were going to pass it on to me, for my own son. But then meanwhile, let's see, so then it was some other family members, like an aunt or something on my father's side. She was doing a lot with collecting, family history and artifacts and things like that, and displaying things on the wall, and like Dee, right? And so since at that time I had not had children yet, she wanted the christening gown so she could have it with her display. And so my grandmother didn't know what to do and all this, and so she asked my dad, and my parents were sort of, thinking, well, that was supposed to be for Kelly, but I didn't have children yet, and it was a bit of a conflict between seeing the christening gown that had been passed down through the years as art, or seeing it for the intention to christen or baptize a baby in. So, long story short, the christening gown was given to that family member, but then when my son was born, they didn't give it back, so he did not get to have that tradition of having that particular christening gown. He had a very cute outfit though, so it's good pictures and good memories of all of that, right? But that is a way that I connect with those family dynamics that Dee and Maggie and Dee and Maggie and the mother are all grappling with. I've seen the same thing, you know, and it's just different perspectives, right? So if you, it doesn't have to be that aspect, it could be another aspect of the story. All right. So that just kind of, that should be it, particularly. You might want to look over the video about, sometimes bonus questions are about the author. You might want to, you know, kind of key on that, some facts about Alice Walker or something like that. But, and the quiz will be open Thursday through Sunday. All right, take care.